That's not the name of our show. Yeah, it is.
I was waiting for it to show up on YouTube.
So so you're gonna be a separate stream, right? Because Brun and I are gonna come through Discord, and then you got to patch yourself in as a local.
Hmm.
Hey, Brun, why did we let the least technologically proficient dude do this tonight?
Hey, you know what? It would help if I'd unmute.
Yeah. Well, I was, it didn't. We didn't come across on YouTube though.
It
Rookie
should be.
mistake.
Oh, it says we're live. It says we're live.
On
Yeah.
this Xbox Live channel.
No, on the Streamlabs. So
Oh, there it just went live.
yeah, it just takes a minute or two. Just let me know if you hear us.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we should be good to go. So, anyways, welcome to this very discombobulated Xbox Life version 683, titled Xbox Tax. Um, oh man, I was gonna see. I am so unprepared. I had so many problems. I was gonna be prepared for this, but let me just say this: the community asked for it. The community got it. So, I think it was Scott that had
Yes,
requested.
and you
Scott
shall
had
receive.
what?
Ask and ye shall
Oh,
receive.
so Scott had asked on the Facebook group. He talked about the Xbox tax isn't real, according to some people. The Xbox tax has been a huge topic of conversation the past couple of weeks, and they asked, and Scott said, "Guys, I need to hear all three of you in your opinion on the Xbox tax." So we decided to get together for a one-time special episode to discuss it. So Rob, is the Xbox tax, is it real?
To some people, it is.
Is it real to you?
It, so, but before we get going, just in case people aren't familiar, you want to just take a second to explain
Fine. Okay, so
like
my
the whole
name is
thing?
Mark, and
No,
oh well, but I
nobody
didn't.
cares about that.
No
But
one cared.
what's no? What is what is the Xbox tax?
Okay, so real quick for those, if anybody's new for any perchance reason, I'm Mark, also known as Wingman 709. I've got Brun in the top left corner there, BJ Swick 33, and we got Rob in the top right. Presar, all those are our gamer tags on Xbox Live. We've been around for a very long time, but we kind of retired, and then I was supposed to continue on the YouTubes, and it's really not going as planned. And but anyways, so we are back for a one-time thing. For all those who've been
Find
listening
us
to us
on
for
this
the
board
last
game
15
life.
years, yeah, you'll know. But you can find Rob and I on this board game life, correct?
Yeah.
Um, we do an audio podcast every 2 weeks, so on board games.
I
So
noticed your board games in the back, by the way.
you know it, some of them. So, anyways, that's us. That's our quick introduction. We didn't feel it needed to be done because everyone should know us. But the Xbox tax. So there's a lot of people complaining about this kind of really came about really with Jeff Keighley's announcements for the Game Awards and what wasn't put up for Game of the Year or what games are perceived as being snubbed. And it's not the first year that Xbox fans have felt snubbed. We had the same thing with, I believe it was Forza Horizon 5 last year, um, which I think 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Oh
You're
wow.
allowed. You're allowed to speak, Bron, but you might be on mute.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So it was 2 years ago, and the thing was like Horizon came out like on November 17th or something like that, or and it was like, oh, they all had to be in by November 10th or something like that.
But it still got an award, like best racer or something like that.
Yeah, it just wasn't in for Game of the Year because Game of the Year they sent out early or something like that. But then I remember the following year it was like God of War came out November 20th, and for some reason it made it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that are and now Starfield completely nowhere. Well, I think they got one nomination. Um, I'm trying to remember what it was, or maybe they didn't. Maybe that was just the community is trying to nominate it in there. But like Starfield is perceived as getting snubbed. Um, so a lot of people are saying that there's an Xbox tax. Now, this not doesn't necessarily mean you're paying more money. That's what tax is. But it's perceived that Xbox is not getting a fair break by the media outlets, by those people that are doing the awards that Sony and Nintendo get. They're the ones that everyone awards and congratulates for all their amazing work, regardless of whether it was or not. Xbox can put out an amazing game like Starfield, which um, quite frankly does a lot. I mean, this I'm impressed with how much stuff is in this game and how many things you can do, and it just is endless.
Epic.
It
Yeah.
is. It's an epic game, and then when it comes out, and now because it's under Microsoft, now all of a sudden Bethesda's no good. Their games are old. They're not updated. It's like name another game that can do what Starfield does. And Bethesda made a Bethesda game, which is what all Bethesda fans have loved for so long. So there's this in the eyes of Xbox fans, it's perceived that people are hating on Bethesda. They loved the company until Microsoft owns them. Call of Duty ABK gets bought. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 gets rated a 4. Before and all they rated was the single player campaign. They gave it a 4, said it sucks, it's terrible, and they rated this game and
And
gave
that's
it a
out of 10,
rating.
right?
Yeah, and gave it a rating before the multiplayer even came out. And now that the multiplayer's out, now some places are they're starting to go back and go, okay, maybe it's not as bad as we. Well, why'd you jump the gun? There's these continual things like IGN, Dan Stapleton saying, if Starfield's not on every platform, you're going to pay for it. And then so they gave Starfield a 7, along with and there was so there's this perceived bias is what it really is it's just got the term Xbox tax, but it's this bias that the media is on the Sony Nintendo side and they hate everything Microsoft, and they won't give a break to anybody or any developer that happens to be under the Microsoft house. Another good example of that is Hi-Fi Rush was shadow dropped this year
Yep.
at E3, right?
Yep.
Or their June showcase, whatever it was. And it's up for a lot of awards. So from the Game Awards, they're actually getting a lot, but you have outlets like they were just on the tip of my tongue from the UK. I think it starts with an M. Metro, thank you. So Metro is like, they actually stated in their review of Hi-Fi Rush that they wish they could give it a higher score, but because Microsoft hasn't had any good games out, that they can't give Hi-Fi Rush a better score. That makes no sense. It's like that proves that you're not rating the game based on the merits of the developer themselves and what they did. You are basing your review on the parent company, which didn't make the game. So there's a lot of that type of stuff's been going on. A lot of people have been calling IGN. We've said it before back when we were podcasting that IGN is a parent's company is Sony. They're constantly full of Sony ads, and Sony pays for IGN, and because you don't bite the hand that feeds you, they Sony can do no wrong. Despite all that's going on right now with Jim Ryan being fired, and I want to say I called this when this ABK stuff came up, if you two remember, probably a year ago, I said with everything that was coming out and all the stuff that because of what Jim Ryan did and what Sony was doing, their dirty laundry was being hung out to dry. And I stated that Jim Ryan would be fired by the end of this year. And technically, he's still there till the end of March, but he was immediately replaced by a financial, the CFO of Sony proper is now running SIE. Um, so he's gone. He was shown the door. And so I'm going to pat myself on the back. I was right. I called it. I also said that Sony's going to end up they're going to have to deal with regulators now. And it started, there's been multiple lawsuits going on. The UK is, they are putting a lawsuit out against Sony for their monopolistic practices, where you can't buy digital Sony games anywhere other than the Sony store. That you can't go to what's that site we always use to buy like Xbox Game Pass codes and
CD
CDKs? Yeah, CD keys, and you can buy digital.
Yeah.
You can buy digital codes of stuff from different sites and stuff that like I think you can go into a GameStop and buy Starfield digitally. You can go into the Walmart and buy it digitally, but you can't buy Sony games digitally unless you go to the Sony store online. So that's a monopolistic practice. So UK has done that, and then there was another country in Europe, in the EU, I want to say it was Romania, that is now pursuing a lawsuit against Sony as well. And once you get a European country in there, a European Union country in there, that kind of brings all the others in because they are all one big happy family based on their rules of the EU. So again, I was right. Sony's going to start to see some major lawsuits. And the thing is, mainstream media is not talking about any of it. All they do is talk about how poor Xbox is or how many PlayStations are being sold, and they only talk about that one thing that Sony has is selling boxes. But they're not talking about engagement. They're not talking about the quality games. What is Sony's roadmap right now? Nobody knows. Sony has not had a show in a long time. The couple things that they've done, even PlayStation fans have said this show sucks. This is it. They have no idea what's really coming next year. And Microsoft has we know stuff coming out for the next several years. And again, the main gaming media does not talk about the lack of a roadmap from Sony. So this is where this Xbox tax is. It's like the media is protecting Sony. They can do no wrong. Microsoft's doing terrible no matter what they do. And that's where this kind of Xbox tax comes along. So hopefully I answered and said that probably way more than Rob intended me to go into.
No,
But
that's a great explanation.
so, Rob, I am curious to you if you think the Xbox tax exists and why, of course.
So yes, I'll say yes up front to that. And the problem, this whole problem, I mean, it stems not just the video game industry. It's kind of like all over the place. It's basically the fact that you have sites like IGN that bill themselves as being a multi-platform, actually not even multi-platform. They label themselves as a video games site, right? News, whatever, all that stuff. They have the shows, the podcasts. Okay, and that's awesome. But the thing is, I would expect entities like that to be fairly impartial, right? It's like, give me what the good and the bad of everything. But like you had mentioned, these sites are basically like it's it's not 100% like this, but I'll just say it to get the point across. It's almost like it's being run by fanboys with a slant. Okay. And that's not cool. And it's not cool to the Xbox, right, ecosystem and all that stuff. It's not cool to anybody. It's just they may as well be like Sony IGN, right? What does IGN stand for? It's like Independent Game Network or something like that. Isn't that it? Or I don't even remember anymore.
It's a good question. I don't think I've ever heard
I'm,
the official name.
yeah,
Uh,
but anyway, I mean, they may as well have Sony in there, and that's fine, right? You have sites that are geared towards Sony. That's what you would expect there, and it's. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we've got across the board in all sorts of media. You know, just give us like an impartial review. Give us information, give us news that's all impartial. That's what's helpful. And the thing is, when they go and they, let's say like, they knock Starfield for certain reasons, and you know, it could be argued whether they're valid or not. But the thing is, it's doing a disservice to your readers, because to their readers, their listeners, whatever, because they're not giving them the full truth. And somebody might believe them, take all the information that they're giving them to heart, and never give the game a try, right? So their listeners lose out on something that maybe they're going to love. Now, I know that there's platforms out there like there's this one guy. He's got a YouTube channel, and he does everything. I mean, he does PC, he does Xbox, he does PlayStation, and I see his stuff, and it's like he's all over the place, which I appreciate. And you know, he says like, this game's not very good. This game's good, and he gives his reasons, and he's not partial to any platform. He is a video gamer at heart, and it does not matter what platform it's on, because technically, that's the thing. We are video gamers. We can play our video games on PC, on our Xbox, on our phones, right? We can play them on all of them, and it's fine. It's like I don't sit here and say like, "Oh, my phone has the best games ever. Sony sucks. Xbox sucks. PC sucks because my Clash of Clans is the best." You know, it is. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it's the Xbox tax is a result of just these platforms just being they're not doing a good service to their customers. They're an echo chamber, and the Xbox tax, yes, it's a real thing, but I to kind of go back to what I said earlier, it's because of who has these platforms, and they're not doing a good service to everybody, their listeners. Does that kind of make sense?
Yep. That's you, bro.
well, it was funny as you were talking about the Dan Stapleton thing. Like, I know he reviewed like all the previous Bethesda games, right? And so when he made those comments about, if Xbox buys Bethesda or whatever, like he said it years ago, and then of course, like he's a higher up person, I think, in IGN as well. I don't think he's like a low level reviewer. So I was actually surprised when he was the one that reviewed Starfield, and it was kind of like, well, I'm reviewing it because I did all the ones previously, and then he gave it a crap review, and then I was like, well, okay, and then people kind of called him out on it, and honestly, I feel like that's just what I feel like he was a Bethesda fan, and that's just how he felt about Starfield. I really believe that's kind of what a score was, but then he made the mistake of not shutting up and posting more stuff on Twitter and like trying to defend his decision. And once he did that, I was like, okay, you did it on purpose. Like, yeah, you lost me. Like, you lost your credibility, because you should have just said, no, I stick by no, that's how I feel. I'm sticking by my review. It was like, I'm going to go defend myself. But a lot of this, I was telling Mark earlier, I was like, a lot of this Xbox tax, like, I don't really feel like it's a real thing. I think it's been made up by a lot of the toxic fan base. Um, like on the because there's toxic people in both communities. We all know
Oh,
that,
yeah.
right? Like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
the toxic Xbox people and PlayStation people. And if you go on Twitter, they just nonstop just don't shut up and just talk about each other. And really, honestly, I feel like behind the scenes they're meeting in Discord and they're just laughing at everybody because they get all this engagement and stuff. And they're like, "What are we going to do tomorrow?" Like it's like wrestling.
Have
You know, these
yeah,
toxic. Yeah.
have you
Good.
guys ever seen that? Man, I forgot the name of that show, but the guy does like he's an energy vampire on social media. I'll send you guys the clip
Okay.
where he just basically sits there and he's like he feeds off of people's energy and all he does is troll.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah,
Well,
it's pretty
there's
funny, but
the
that's a real thing.
yeah. Like I feel like it's like a wrestling skit show type thing, and they're like, well, I'm going to say this, and then you say this because a lot of what these people say when you read it, my first thought is like they're not that. They have some sort of intelligence. I really feel like because when I read it, I'm just like nobody believes that a company who puts out one first party game when all they talk about is how they release all these awesome first party games and they release one and nobody knows about anything else. And then it's just re-release, remaster, remake. And then you just talk about sales numbers justifies like I haven't bought my PlayStation 5 yet. Like I still plan on buying one because I really want to play Spider-Man. But I don't I can't justify a $500 $570 game to play. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's going to cost
It-
you more than that.
Well, I know, but I'm
Because
just
your
saying in
the
general. Like,
PlayStation is now $550,
well,
right?
yeah. So,
Plus
but I
plus
mean,
your
I know
$70.
yeah, I know there's more than one game, but it's like if their next game is like Last of Us 2 remastered and stuff like that, I'm just like But as far as the Xbox tax stuff, like I know there's bias and stuff like that. We know that's there, and IGN's kind of always been that way. And I remember when um, I used to listen to GameScoop every week, and it was Damon Hatfield, who I still like. I like him. But I remember them saying like, "Oh, at IGN, we don't get paid for reviews." It was like this whole time when they thought they were getting paid for reviews and stuff. And they're like, "Our marketing department is separate from our reviews department. Like, we don't know who's paying for marketing." And it's very ironic that I don't know if it was the same episode or a couple episodes later, they did like like before the show started, they were reading off an ad. It's because they have ads in front of their show. And it was Damon Hatfield reading a Sony ad prior to his GameScoop show. And I'm just like, what do you mean you don't know who's paying for your ads? You're reading it. It's like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and
But
they all go to the IGN webpage and it's plastered all over. You know who's paying every day.
yeah,
So-
yeah. And I mean, and a lot of people go back to like Metacritic. Like, does Metacritic really justify like how good a game is? Like,
No.
oh, No, it
sense in
doesn't.
really.
right. And it's really funny how it was like Xbox did have some of those like they're like Redfall scored terrible, right? And it was okay, but I really feel like some of the scores were justified on what Redfall got, right? And then it was just like, you guys can't, like I only play 80s and above. And then all of a sudden, like Starfield gets an 83, and it's like, well, I only play 85s and above. And then, something gets
83.1.
like gets an 88, and the person's like, well, we only play games that are 90 and above. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then the first Spider-Man gets an 88, and they're like, well, I played that one because it's single play. It's like it's
Yeah.
the whole the moving the goalpost, right? That's all most this Xbox tax or Sony stuff is, but it's just moving the goalpost. But as far as the Game Awards, I'll just go back to that because I know that's what really started a lot of this stuff on the internet. Is Starfield should be in Game of the Year. It should be in the list for Game of the Year. Was it going to win Game of the Year? No.
It's an RPG. That's right. It got one nomination for RPG.
And it's not going to win that. I'm
No,
sorry. Baldur's Gate 3 is going to win. that,
right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
that's why they gave it, because they know it won't win.
Yeah. So Baldur's Gate 3, Legend of Zelda are probably one of the two that are going to win. You know what I mean? That the Game of the Year part, right? When you go and look, you see Alan Wake 2, which I heard Dan does awesome. I don't know if you guys played it yet, but I haven't
No.
played it yet. Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man, those should both be in there. Alan Wake 2 should be in there. Super Mario
Spider-Man
Brothers.
should not be.
What I'm saying,
I'm sorry.
saying, though, is
I'm sorry. Bugman 2.
So
Bugman 2
what
should
I'm
not
saying,
be
though,
there.
is Starfield should be in there.
Yes.
Spider-Man should be in there.
No.
Neither one of them are going to win, right?
Sure.
The only
Well, that's that. Well, guess what? We're only a week away from finding out, but I
Yeah.
honestly wouldn't be surprised if Spider-Man wins because
it's not going to win.
of the inherent bias and and here's the thing, if we know that, and if everyone's predicting that Baldur's Gate 3 wins RPG of the year, should it win Game of the Year as well?
Yeah,
Like
I would
like
say.
I almost feel like if you're Game of the Year, you shouldn't get any other awards. You shouldn't be able to walk away with 7-8 awards.
I can see that.
How did Starfield not get nominated for its music? The music is amazing. The sound in
Yeah.
that game is incredible.
Mhm.
And that's where kind of like the snubs come along.
Mm-hmm.
They voted, they put a game in the indie group. It's not even an indie developer.
Mhm.
They had the developer came out and said, "Oh, we're not indie. We shouldn't be in here." They nominated a coach that never even coached this year. Like,
Yeah,
so there's so many problems with the nominations this year, beyond the snubbing of a certain platform that has been there from previous years. So,
but so Starfield should be in the list. Again, I don't think it was going to win. With some of the other games that are in there,
right.
The problem I have with the Game of the Year nominations is how is a game that released in 2005 in for Game of the Year?
Yeah. And not only that, Resident Evil should not be there, but the real game of the year is not nominated for a single thing, and that's Hogwarts Legacy. I am not a Harry Potter fan at all. I never read the books. I slept through the movies. My kids love it. That game is awesome.
Yeah,
I love Hogwarts Legacy. It is, and I don't, you do not have to be a Harry Potter fan, okay? Because Harry Potter's not even in it. It's just in that world. The game is incredible. What they did with that, I love that game. It is, oh my gosh, it's so good. And that's a snub. They dropped them, and it to me makes the whole Game Awards illegitimate because
it is.
Well, we don't want to get involved in the controversy of J.K. Rowling. I'm sorry, there was gay people in whatever you want to term LGBTQ2IA plus question mark whatever term it is today. They were represented in that game. J.K. Rowling did not make the game. So, the developers and the people that made an incredible game are being penalized because of it. And I'm sorry, Hogwarts is Game of the Year. And I wish it had come out later so people didn't forget about it. But that game is phenomenal. I don't think anything surpassed it.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, and I am a Harry Potter fan. I even got my wand here.
So fix the awards. Put Harry Potter in there. Or put Hogwarts Legacy in there, Brun. Come on.
Yeah, so I'm a Harry Potter fan, and
Repulso.
I played the game, and I love the movies, and I don't agree with. I don't agree with J.K. Rowling or whatever, and some of her statements and stuff
But
like that.
it
But
it doesn't
it didn't keep me from
matter.
playing the game.
Right.
I
It doesn't
I don't care.
matter what she says. That has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the fact
Correct.
that this game that was made is phenomenal. And it's the
Yeah.
highest selling game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I
Well,
guess we'll see if Call of Duty beats it, you know, but
I'll be interested. The thing about game of the game of the year, and I didn't see this until Colin Moriarty pointed it out. He's like formerly of IGN, and you know he got canceled and started his own show and stuff. But he's got like the number one PlayStation podcast in the world, right? And he pointed this out about Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards and stuff. Was like, go and pay attention of like who the ads are from. Like during the thing, they all come from like the same company, which was Tencent, right? And then it was like the following year, it wasn't Tencent, it was like some other umbrella company, you know, like this company. And you go and look at it, and that company's owned by Tencent. So it's basically Jeff Keighley in the Game Awards is paid for by the Chinese, you know, government and all the, you know, like all that money comes in, you know, and stuff. So not only that, I feel like over the last couple of years, and the reason why I say Spider-Man's not going to win Game of the Year is because God of War did not win Game of the Year last year. But of course, it was going up against Elden Ring. But, you know, it's just, I mean, that's just what it is. The Game Awards does seem very sketchy and interesting. And again, I would have believed some of it until I think Jeff Keighley started tweeting about things, defending it. And right when he did that, I was like, all right, you've lost me, because anybody that has to come out and defend like that, instead of just saying, no, that's just what it is. I mean, you don't have to like be silent, but you don't have to come out and like battle it out on Twitter. Because once you do that, I just have this feeling of like, yeah, you're full of crap now. Now I don't believe you, because you felt the urge to just keep running your mouth trying to defend it when it's just like it should speak for itself, right? So, but
Yeah, because when you get weird stuff that happens, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that doesn't make sense. Like, you don't have to agree with everything, right?
Yeah.
When you have like 5 games, let's say, going against each other, you don't have to necessarily agree with why one wins, because everybody has different tastes. However, when you have stuff that doesn't make sense, like, why is this in here? Like, there is no, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. That illegitimizes the whole thing, right? It just says that something else is going on here, so the whole thing is like illegitimate.
yeah, and
and oh, good. Sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing about the Game Awards that I kind of half believe in and stuff is the people that actually vote on it. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of like fan voting, like, oh, Game of the Year voted by the fans. I'm like, you know, it's just whoever, you know, the most people go out there and click a button, which you can go out and vote for your own certain things. But, you know, I go and I watch and it's like, oh, you know, Greg Miller, who I also like. Greg Miller is on the panel for voting.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
oh, Braun.
You know, I wonder who he's going to vote for. You know what I mean? Like, but why you don't you know I'm talking about though, Greg Miller wise.
I know who you're talking about. You're just
Okay.
like, you like Colin Moriarty, you like Greg Miller. I'm like, oh man, Braun. I don't even know how you and I don't know how you and I can be friends.
Yeah, I don't. Well, so I stopped listening to Greg Miller, and I forget who else is on Kind of Funny. There's one guy on Kind of Funny who's like a scumbag. And he's a scumbag because he threw his friend under the bus and then act like he didn't know him when it was Colin. So Colin made that joke or whatever. And he was like, how dare you? Like, oh, I'm not friends with him. Like, I've never liked him anyways. I was like, you know, right there's a true, I can say worse things, but I don't want to say it on the show.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I forget what his name is, but like I would love to like, oh, like it'd be funny like to bump into him in conversation. I kind of look at him like, you know what? I don't say this to many people, but you are a piece of beep. It's like, he's one person I would do that. But I
Yeah.
mean, I don't listen to Greg or those guys. I do listen to Colin, but the reason why I listen to him is because all the stuff he went through, and he's the only person that I feel is like us. He calls out PlayStation for what it is. Like when they do he wants to know where are the games? Like, you're talking about like, hey, where's the roadmap? He's been saying, where's our roadmap? Where's our games? Like you released one game this year. Like how's this and that? And so but yeah.
And the thing is, something like that, it's not like bagging on a company. It's a legitimate question,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That you can ask about any place. It's not picking on them. It's a valid question.
Sony used to, and this is one thing I always hated about Sony, and I hated when Microsoft was doing it, was Sony'd announce games at E3. Here's what's coming out in the next 3, 4, and 5 years. Like,
Yeah, I don't like that.
and I hated that. So when Microsoft did the next 12 months, granted, it backfired. I've always been
Yes.
I've always said 18 months, but I was so happy. I was like really happy. It's like, yes, what am I going to play by the next E3? What's going to be in my hands? Now, granted, we had COVID kick in and cause a lot of problems, and they didn't make their marks, but still, you were telling us what we should be playing in the near future, not 3, 4, and 5 years away. And I like that Microsoft is still trying to stick to, hopefully at least under 2 years. It seems like they got so much stuff that they're able to talk about. Here's what's coming out in the next 18 to 24 months and kind of stick to it. And as a fan of gaming, I don't care what's coming out in 5 years. I may not even be gaming in 5 years. I might be doing something else. I might be dead. What am I going to play this year? What's coming out this year? That's what matters. But I think there's a lot of problems around the Xbox tax. I believe it exists. I do. And I've seen way too many things that, show bias from people. But I think there's so many facets to it. I had to take my company's annual harassment training and stuff today. And, part of that is like, talking about our inherent biases that we have, okay, I'm a white guy. And so I must have, biases against,
because we have to do that in my work too. And so I would argue that them saying that there's inherent biases, that in itself is a bias. Right?
Yeah.
Unconscious bias.
Yeah. So
unconscious bias.
But I think everyone does have some form of bias. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just just your environment, what you grew up with, things like that. So
Taco Bell over McDonald's. I mean, it's in every stuff, and it's mostly harmless.
Yeah, but what people with cars, Ford versus Chevy type of thing, these types of things exist. They're all over. The sports teams, and I think this really, you can look at a sports team and how you root for your team. This is the same thing that fans are doing with Xbox and PlayStation, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So you got the people that are going to be on there and fight to the death for their team. That's great. I don't have a problem with that.
Literally,
the problem, yeah. The problem is where you have people that get into journalism or media or whatever you want to call it today that grew up when PlayStation was huge, before Xbox, right? And that's what they played, and that's what they know, and that's their team. So they're not going to root or say anything positive about the enemy, the other team.
They're failing.
You have, exactly. And I think if you get into the media, you have, and our regular news, right? The regular news is just as bad. I mean, they've been bad forever. There is no such thing as news anymore. There's no journalism. There is nothing. That's why people go to the internet and watch little shows like this, because we're not journalists. We're telling it as it is. This is our feelings. This is how we feel about it. And it doesn't, because the Xbox fans or community feels that there's a tax on their favorite brand, doesn't mean that it's not happening. I know Dustin Legary from IGN got out on his own personal channel and said it doesn't exist. The problem is, and I like Destin, I've been following him, and I did not unsubscribe. I know he lost a lot of subscribers when this happened, and he said it doesn't exist. But the problem with someone like Destin is that he's in that community. So I don't believe he can see it because he is, quote, a journalist. He works for IGN. IGN pays his bills. He is not going to sit there and go, yeah, IGN is biased, because he'll be out of a job. Okay.
Yeah.
So that
he may be saying that out of fear. No.
he might. I mean, in all honesty, we all have to pay our bills. Okay. This is a time of year where people lose their jobs. Is the end of the year. Companies lay off all the time at the end of the year. And it happens, and we're in a recession, and things are bad out there, and everything costs so much more than it used to. And, and money rules everything. So you got the first part, I think, of a lot of people grew up with their home team, the PlayStation. They got into journalism, games journalism, and that's who they're rooting for all the way, which shouldn't be. You should be unbiased when you are doing this type of stuff, but they're not. When they get offered to review a game, do you want a PlayStation code or an Xbox code? Well, I want the PlayStation code. You look at the reviews, 3 to 5 times more people, the same game is reviewed on a PlayStation over an Xbox. It's just the way it is, right? So there's not a fair and balanced review there. You also have the fact that a company like IGN has to pay the bills, got to keep the people paid and employed, and they make their money off advertising. Okay. So if Sony's coming in and going to give you a big chunk of money, you are going to want to keep that company happy. So Sony keeps giving you advertising dollars. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the fact of the world we live in today. And so it's not fair, but Sony has blackballed. They got a history. Everyone knows they fear Sony. Sony's ruthless. They will cut you off if you say anything negative. You get a review and you give it a negative review, you won't get another review copy. You won't get a game from them to review in the future. And that has happened to several journalists that have maybe not been as kind to a Sony game, and they didn't get the next one or the one after that. They were cut off. So you don't want to say anything bad, because you got to keep those coming in, because having those reviews brings the clicks, brings the engagement, drives up those advertising dollars. Again, it's all about money. So Microsoft doesn't have as big of a base as Sony does, but that's going to change. And here's another prediction. I was right about Jim Ryan. I was right about Sony getting sued. I'm predicting that Microsoft is going to continue to buy studios. I think you might hear some more next week. I believe they're going to get Crystal Dynamics and IO Entertainment, and they're going to wrap up the Tomb Raider is going to become exclusive first party. And I think that, not who's that other company there's the one that was buying everything up, and they're bleeding right now. Embracer, thank you. Embracer is bleeding and letting people go, and they have people that are working with Microsoft right now on Perfect Dark, right, and stuff like that. So I really do think that they're going to acquire. I think Microsoft's going to acquire those 2 studios from Embracer, and they're probably going to get a good deal, because Embracer needs to offload a bunch of stuff. And with the Activision Blizzard deal, Microsoft is just going to continue to grow. Game Pass is going to continue to grow. Subscriptions are going to continue to grow. And pretty soon, places like IGN and GameSpot are going to realize that, Microsoft is now equal footing with Sony. And pretty soon, they're going to probably exceed the Sony fan base and the amount of games that are coming out and the coverage they're going to want to put towards Microsoft. And are they going to just continue to crap on Microsoft and lose that money? No, they're going to have to switch. not Nintendo Switch, but they're gonna have to make a change and maybe bring in some more Xbox centric people or people that can look at everything with a neutral eye. Like I
I was
think
gonna
I'll
say, or just calling it neutrally. Like they don't have to bring in Xbox people. They just have to do that because they got this. You know, people look at them like, oh, you guys are bought by Sony. They're like, oh, no, we're not. And it's like, why do you act like it? Why does it seem that way? Like, and Rob, I thought you were going to say it earlier, and actually, Mark, I thought he was going to say it too. It's all this stuff that's going on is past the point of it being a coincidence, right?
right.
There's something that happens like, oh, that's weird. And it's like, oh, that's kind of a weird coincidence. And then all of a sudden it's like, again? Again?
Like IGN
It's like,
not
yeah.
like IGN promoting a game coming to PlayStation, but not mentioning that it was funded. It's an Xbox game and it's going to be launching day and date in Game Pass.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
we
I
forgot
love that one.
about that. We forgot to mention that. That was just an oversight.
Small
But then
detail, yeah.
but then you did it again like the next day. The
Mhm.
IGN is constantly just, that
Well,
they're
yeah,
proving it in their comments. They're proving
yeah,
the bias and the problems.
what was the one that actually Destin, because you're talking about Destin Gary, who I also like. I like a lot of people.
No,
But
that's okay. And see,
yeah.
here's
And
the
he
cool.
and he
Real quick, you like people that I do not like, that I despise. I think they're dirt, right? You like them, you listen. That's great. That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
You and I
Doesn't
are
matter.
still friends. We don't care,
Yeah.
and that's the way
We're
it
still gonna
should be.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. But what was the thing? What was the game? Oh, it was Forza. Remember all the reviews for Forza came out, and Destin
Motorsport.
was one of the main people I think that reviewed it for IGN, basically saying it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It doesn't do this. And then
I
the
agree.
community came out and said, hey, did you know there's a bug? Did you know that you have to do this? Did you know how? And then it was like, oh,
Yeah.
and then he had to retract all his stuff and put it back out. And so they came out and kind of, corrected themselves, but nobody else did. Everybody else
Right.
just rode that train and stuff like that. But Destin, I watched a lot for the Activision Blizzard stuff. Like he did journalistic and journalism for his channel.
Exactly. Yep.
So I think he has a journalism degree as well. So he's a journalist. Everybody else that works at IGN, not a journalist. That's like calling somebody a programmer because they copied something from Chat GPT and then they ran it and the program worked. I'm sorry, you're not a programmer. Yeah, I'm a programmer now. No, you're not. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a programmer. It's like, and you know what though? It's like I'm a programmer, but I'm not a game developer. I don't call myself. It's like me calling myself a game developer. I'm a game developer because I write web pages. Like,
Yeah.
I write web applications. I'm not a game developer. So, but yeah. So I remember him getting in trouble for that stuff, and everybody was just kind of like, no, like even Turn 10 said there was this bug, and then it's like, oh yeah, you have to do this, and you have to restart it. Do you remember? You guys remember what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah.
Because I agreed with him. I think Forza Motorsport is probably the worst looking one since probably Forza 2. I don't think it looks that great. So I haven't gone back to try whatever it was, or maybe it's patched and
Well,
fixed. I don't know.
it should be fixed. Should be
but-
fixed out of the box now. You know what I mean? That was like on the review time, because what
Oh,
happened is they
then-
put that out, and it was feeding all the toxic Sony people saying GT8 or GT whatever number they're on,
GT,
GT8
yeah.
or GT7.
7, I think.
Like-
7.
Yeah, it's like it looks better than this, and then once they fixed that bug, and then you put them side to side, it didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but the thing is they were just pumping it out. Like, look how bad this looks. Look how bad this looks.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then IGN goes and corrects themselves, and the people are still pumping the old IGN, screenshotting it and sending that out. So, like,
Yeah.
the all of Twitter was kind of like that. But that's, like I said, when you're talking about the Xbox tax stuff, I was like, I saw that like on Twitter, and once I see those things and those same like toxic people start battling it out, I start to ignore that stuff. Like I just
Yeah.
don't even pay attention to them because I'm just like whatever they're arguing about now. So, but in the Xbox tax and stuff, like do you think the only thing that defines success in the gaming industry is how many boxes you sell? Because
No.
we've had this discussion for decades, right? Like years.
Well, Microsoft is proving right now that doesn't lead to success because Sony says has sold 2 to 3 times more hardware this generation than Xbox, but Xbox is making more profit than Sony by big margins. Those numbers just came out a couple weeks ago, and Xbox is way ahead in profit over Sony. Big time. So it's like, well, wait a minute, why is that? I thought you sold so many more boxes. You don't make any money on the boxes. Sony probably is because they keep decreasing the cost to themselves and increasing the price to their consumers. That's just what they do. So, first to $70, first to raise a console. Like when have we ever had a console increase in price? Do you realize the first adopters to this generation got the box at its cheapest price? That's never happened.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, Brun, you're gonna jump on board now, and you're gonna pay more than the early adopters did for the PS5.
Which makes it harder to buy.
4 years later.
Yeah, I got another. Well, here's another question about like the sales and stuff because I feel like, okay, so I have a Series X, right? Honestly, I could care less how many more Series X's that Microsoft sells. Like, I want them to be successful, just like I'd like the gaming industry to be successful. But I really don't care if they sell 3 or 4 more million this month, right? Because when I play a game, it doesn't mean there's 3 more million people in my online Fortnite game or something like that.
Yep.
But when I'm not going to go around and sit there and celebrate and just talk about it as if it's like some massive victory that they sell, like this $1 trillion company sells more boxes. Because do you think, and this is Sony and Xbox, do you think Sony and Xbox care more or less about the person who has already bought the box versus people who haven't bought it yet? You know what I mean? Once you buy the box, they don't give a rat's, they don't care. They don't care about you anymore. You already gave them your money. You know what I mean? So that's the funny part when I see people celebrating like how many boxes, like, yeah, we won another month. I'm like, who's we?
Yeah.
Like,
well, your
who's
team.
We? And and shouldn't you be concerned about when you're going to be able to play a game on that box that you bought? Because no, you're celebrating how many boxes they sold, and they don't care about you anymore. You gave them your money.
Well, here's another thing too that just came out. Sony's sales numbers are inaccurate.
What do you mean?
This was just revealed, I think, before Thanksgiving or maybe since then. That like what is that? That's the PlayStation Portal.
Oh,
that is counted as a PlayStation 5 sale.
Yeah.
Even though you have to have a PlayStation 5 to use the portal, if you buy a PS5, that's a PS5 sale. If you buy a portal to go with it, that is a second PS5 sale on Sony's books.
Makes sense to me.
I don't know if they've confirmed that their VR is the same, because again, it requires that PlayStation 5 for the PSVR 2, but their numbers they're lying on their financial statements about their sales. So again, they're not going to be on top very long. This lawsuit is, I think it was 8 billion pounds. I think it's like $6 billion in US money. And the CAT has approved that class action lawsuit to move forward, and it has the words monopolistic practices in the wording, and a judge approved this to go to court. So if this class, and granted it's going to take a long time, but if Sony loses this, then they're going to have a lot of money, and they're going to have to save some money to pay for the attorneys, the how much money is it going to cost them to fight this? Are they just going to try to settle? But if they fight it, there's that money that they have available now, which is not a whole lot more than that. I think I heard they had like 12 billion or something available to spend compared to like Microsoft's $100 billion. Even after ABK, Microsoft still has like tens of billions of dollars still available. And Sony's going to have to probably think about acquiring stuff because they can't afford it. I know the Iron Lords, King David's talked about there's going to be no PS6. And again, with these lawsuits, and if that's just one lawsuit, if the EU gets involved and the US gets involved and other countries start getting involved, Sony's going to have a nightmare on their hands, and they're going to be paying for lawsuits like crazy. They're not going to have the money to invest in a PS6 or this thing and that, and it's going to impact their ability to acquire other companies and build new hardware. And it I really think the future is very uncertain for Sony, which sucks for PlayStation fans.
Yeah, so that lawsuit again is with the PSN, like you can only buy games on the PSN, right?
Yeah, you
Or
can.
something like that. But isn't that the same for Nintendo and the same technically for Xbox as well? Or does Xbox get away with it by saying like, oh no, you can buy them on PC? Or is it that like, oh no, you can buy the game on the card
You can
in the store
you can go in the store and buy the card for
of
like
the game?
Starfield. You can buy a little card
Yeah.
with the code on it. You can buy that at Walmart.
And then those might
But
go
you
on
can't-
sale or something like
and
that,
they
right?
and they can. The store has the ability to put things like that on sale,
Yeah.
where you can't go in and buy like God of War
Right.
to whatever the last God of War was. You can't go in and buy the card from a store, or you can't go to another digital store to buy it. Supposedly,
Did
you
that
can only
change?
buy it at the PSN store.
Yeah.
That's the only way to get PlayStation games and stuff is directly from Sony, and they don't allow it to be sold anywhere else. That's the claim of the lawsuit. I don't know if
they
it's
just
true or
need to-
not.
They just need to basically settle and fix that, right? I mean, that's essentially
That's
they're
the
gonna
thing
have to
is
do,
what
right?
we've talked about when they were criticizing Xbox with about ABK and they're becoming a monopoly. Well, Sony has done monopolistic practices forever. They drove Sega out of business in the hardware business. They have been ruthless, and people can say it's ruthless, it's business, but I still don't like the exclusives where you're going out and money hatting everything so that it can only go to your platform and nobody else. That is not consumer friendly, and that does not allow for competition, and it does not allow for lower prices, because if you're the only one in town that has that game, you can set the price for your console, you can set the price for the game, and no one else can go anywhere else. That's monopolistic. That's the definition of a monopoly, and they've been doing it forever.
Yeah, and that goes both ways too, right? Like I know we've said this before. Like I don't care for third party exclusive stuff. I think it's first
Right.
party. If you own the studio and you own the IP, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yep.
But I also say, in my opinion, it would be smart that you sell it only on your console, but you also sell it day and date on PC.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing people don't understand. I feel like they don't understand either, is how much money they give up by not putting it on PC. And I'm sorry, putting on PC 2 years later does not count, because people don't
Right.
want to wait 2 years to play a game. I just watch it on Twitch now, and then when
Yeah.
it does come out, I don't buy it because I already know the ending of it.
Yep.
But I would have bought it, because there's people, they're like, well, we do this so you go buy the console. Okay, let me just tell you, this is not me, but a lot of people that play on PC do not want to play it on a console. The same way
Right.
people that play on console do not want to play on PC.
Right.
Can you imagine? I mean, there are PC only games because really it's the only thing that can kind of run them. Like you can't play Tarkov on console. It just wouldn't work. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's the thing. It's like, Starfield 2 only on PC. please go buy your $2,000 PC to play this. Like all the console, but it'll come to console 2 years from now. You know what I mean? That doesn't sound smart. You know what I mean?
No.
It sounds like, and then when it does come out on PC, you're still charging $70 for a 2-year-old game. No, you got to sell it at a discount. So you got to knock
No,
$10,
no, you got
off of it.
you charge more for it because now prices are more up, and now
Yeah.
instead of $60 like it was 2 years ago on console, it's now $70. So,
Yeah.
and we had to
But, I
pay
mean-
money to develop it for the PC. No, you didn't. You developed it on a PC 2 years ago.
Yeah, and even $10, like even dropping, it's funny, dropping $10 and then you turn around and you sell 4 million copies on PC. It's like, see, it still sold,
Yeah.
but you lost $40 million because
Yeah.
you didn't put it day and date. Like, what are you thinking? Like, I guess it'd be nice. I don't know. We're not rich billion-dollar companies, you know what I mean? So I guess throwing away $40 million is no big deal. Like,
We're not a billion-dollar company. We're a multi-trillion-dollar company, Brun. Come on.
yes, because we each have a trillion, and we're
Well, we're Microsoft. You know that. We're Team Xbox.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
shout out to Jason who's in the chat there. Glad to see you are able to watch us live.
Yeah. Hello.
So
That's funny.
Hey, so
Yeah.
Mark, going back to what you were saying a couple seconds ago, what was the deal with not being able to buy Sony games at retail? I mean, because you can buy discs, right? Like
digital.
retail.
It's the digital market is what they're
Okay.
talking about. So you can't buy digital games.
I got you.
And again, that may not be the case here in the U.S. This is in the U.K. where this lawsuit's at, and so I don't know. I thought I've seen games on digital codes sold for Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft at the Walmart and local stores. I could have swore you could, but
Yeah,
that's in the
Let
U.S.
me look
So
let me look at CD keys. So
so.
they have PC, PSN.
Well, the difference. Okay, so CD keys. That was a bad example of what I said earlier because CD keys is my understanding is they are somehow buying these codes at a discount, and then like when you order it, you usually wait for someone to send you the code.
It comes an email.
Yeah,
and you just go accept it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the early days, I remember getting it like they would scratch it off and take a picture of it and send it in your email, and you're like, is this legit? So
Yeah.
I think it's improved, but I think that's not what they're referring to. Because I know I've seen the Sony PlayStation cards there. I mean, when you go there, it's like they're on the front with Xbox and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
It's like getting like Xbox Live cards, right?
right, but the
But
digital
service.
codes for a game is what
Yeah.
they're saying that you can't do in the UK. And so Sony's not allowing anyone in the UK, all UK consumers have to go to PSN to buy digital games, period. You can't get them anywhere else, and that's what that lawsuit's about. So
Gotcha.
if it's not the
Says-
same here, then the US obviously won't get involved in that.
Yeah, it says the lawsuit was filed by consumer champion such and such, who she believes she has been overcharged up to $5 billion for digital purchases on PlayStation Store over the last 6 years. It's alleged that Sony has abused its dominant position in the market and has a near monopoly on the sale of digital games and add-on content through its control of the PlayStation Store. It's very similar to, I feel like this is almost very similar to the whole like Apple and
Epic.
thing when you couldn't like side load, stuff. And it was like they wanted to be able to put other stores on your iPhone and stuff. I think it's very similar to that. But I'm curious, like, it doesn't sound that it's like, oh, you can only buy it on the PSN. It sounds like they are taking their position and forcefully doing it. It's almost like, them saying we're going to raise our games $10 and now you're going to pay $70, like, because you can't buy it anywhere else or something. I don't know, but that's what it kind of sounds like. That's what this article was saying.
So,
Huh.
but again, it's you've got multiple countries now going after that. So, like Sony is not the market leader here. They're, Microsoft, Xbox, and Sony or Xbox and PlayStation are pretty close. But everywhere else, Xbox is a far distance to Sony and Nintendo. And when, like, Sony said Nintendo's not a competitor, so those words that they tried to use to help them, their case in the ABK deal is going to come back to haunt them, because now in a case like this, you're going to be, it's going to be like, well, you said Nintendo wasn't a competitor, so we're just looking. Then the regulators are going to look at Sony as like, well, it's Sony, Microsoft only, because that's what Sony said.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of that dirty laundry is going to come back to hurt them. But I think at the end we should probably wrap this up so we can all get going. It's been we're a bit over an hour, but it's a good conversation. I don't know, unless any of you guys had anything else to say. I certainly want to give you your time. Any other thoughts on the Xbox tax?
I would say just one thing, like when we go to sources for like reviews and information on stuff, I really think that we kind of need to look at these companies like IGN and say, like, what kind of information am I getting? Am I getting echo chamber? Am I getting a legitimate review? And make the decision on who you trust, who you listen to, because they are out there. And we look at like mainstream media, right? That's, I hate that word. It's kind of silly, but there were over the last couple of years, YouTube channels and people that had their own platforms that were way more popular than what you see on TV. And those people are out there. You just need to look for them and then judge for yourself. Is this person legit? Are they giving me good information? And give them your time. Don't go to these places that are like shilling just one-sided views, and because you're cheating yourself. You're cheating yourself from the real news and real opinions of games. Because one thing I was going to mention earlier was, like, if Spider-Man 2 came out on both Xbox and PlayStation, that IGN would say Spider-Man 2 gets a 2. It's terrible. And the PlayStation 1 gets a 10.
Because of the power of the SSD drive.
Yeah.
It's, Rob, when you started talking to me, I know now why there is an Xbox tax, right? Is because IGN and all those companies, they're mad because Xbox pushed them out by making Game Pass. You don't need a review to find out if you're going to spend your $70 on a game when it just comes with your subscription, as long as you're subscribed.
I like that.
Dude, I don't even like buying games anymore.
I can download and play it for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was it? Oh, there was something that just released, shadow dropped on Game Pass yesterday.
The Remnant and Remnant 2.
Yeah. Like, I know someone was like, I was listening to another show and someone was chatting in. I was like, thanks, Microsoft. I just bought this.
Yeah. But isn't that, like, I just thought about that when Rob started talking. It's like, that's actually maybe all those places, they're just angry because they're pushed out. Like, they're irrelevant when it comes to Xbox first party games now.
You can
because
just play it.
You don't need a review. You can play it. Plus, if you go out and look at reviews because you're on the fence, or you go to YouTube or stuff like what Rob was saying, you can listen and kind of make a judgment off there, but never go on and start bashing a game or whatever unless you play it for yourself, right? Because you're the only one, and definitely if somebody says the game's terrible and you still think it looks fun, go play it because you might like it. You know what I mean? It's like you got to use
Ye-
yourself as your own reviewer, not some other person. But
You might be some weirdo like me who, I'm sorry, I like Redfall. It's the only
Mhm.
Arcane Studio game I have ever played that I liked, and it's the only one I completed. I have not
Yeah.
liked any other Arcane game, so
And
I
I
don't
heard
know
it's
what that
actually
says about me, but I had a great time. No, was
yeah,
it perfect? No.
no,
It probably needed another year of polish, to be honest, but the game was playable and it was fun. And
yeah.
now,
I
yeah,
had
now
fun
Yeah.
playing it
it's
with people.
That's what
yeah.
Yeah,
matters.
So
yeah. But I heard the last couple updates actually made it really like is starting to make it get better
it's
and performance and stuff like that.
60 frames per second now, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's I haven't gone back to it, but I'd like to because I've heard that yeah, there's some updates that have improved it, but I really enjoyed the game. So
yeah. And
again, don't again, if I'd listened to reviewers, I'd have never played it. But
right.
it's on Game Pass. I'm like, I'm gonna try it out, and I liked it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it doesn't matter if IGN gave it a 5. I could still
this
download and play it for myself and have fun with it. And yes, like it had some funny moments in it. But the last thing I have to say for it, and you guys will get this in some of the older people, but read my lips. No new Xbox taxes. You guys
okay.
remember that, right?
Yeah.
It was Bush Senior, right? President Bush Senior. You're like, read my lips. No new taxes. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. It's been fun talking with you guys again.
Oh, for sure.
And we'll see the comments coming in, I'm sure, over the next week or two as people find out we actually posted an episode. But
Yeah.
continue to we're not active in the Facebook group. I still lurk. I'm sure the other guys lurk in there.
I lurk.
So feel free to. It's there for the community to talk amongst yourselves. I see people still in there doing stuff and sharing topics, and I appreciate it because I'll go and read stuff in there that you guys post. So, but hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Hope y'all have an amazing Christmas, and take the talk up next week. Let's see what happens at the Game Awards. I look forward to seeing some comments in the Facebook group on what you guys think. And share your thoughts on the thread for this post. I've already posted it in the Facebook link to this live feed here. So after you get a chance to watch it, sound off in there if you think Xbox tax is real or not. We'd love to hear from you. All right, with that,
Do we get to sign off like normal?
sure, go ahead, Brun.
All right. I'm BJ Swig 33. We'll catch you next week.
No, you won't.
Oh, you see, I was hoping that like you'd go through.
Yeah.
I'd go last. And it'd be like, catch you guys next week, and then you'd hit stop, and they'd be like, wait, what did
What?
Brun say? Yeah. Good.
Then,
Good, Rob.
man, I have to think carefully about what I'm saying. Don't want to confuse it. I'm Rob, also known as Presar. Thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you all next time.
And I'm Mark, aka Wingman 709, taking off. But I'll see you on this board game live. All right.